Okay, so here we're going to talk about the first half of the George Washington notes. The first thing that you need to make sure that you have is the first page of the fill in the blank. So you'll need to make sure that you pick that up. It'll have First President George Washington at the top. It will have all of the different subcategories that we're going to talk about with the blanks that you're going to need to fill in. You're going to do one page at a time. When you finish the first page and you finish this video, then you'll be given the second page, and then you can access the second video so that you can finish up the George Washington notes in full. So let's go through the first half of these notes. So we're going to talk about George Washington, who most of you, I think, already have down and already recognize and realize was the very first president of the United States. Remember that once the Constitution is ratified and put into place as our form of government, the executive branch, it very specifically lines it out in Article 2 that the head of the executive branch is the president. So they had to go through this entire voting process, nomination process of who would be the first president. And George had a lot of accomplishments and characteristics and just personality traits that really helped him to stand out to the people who were nominating and who voted. So up at the top, you're going to put that his vice president was a man named John Adams. So be sure that you fill in that blank. It's also asking you to fill in the years of his terms. He is going to serve 2 terms back to back. So he will serve as president from 1789 to 1797. And then it will say political party as well. And you're actually going to put the word none, N-O-N-E, and we're going to talk about that briefly in a moment. All right, so the first section really kind of talks about him and his background. Mostly he liked to view himself as just a Virginia farmer. He was a very humble person, a very humble man. He didn't really believe that a lot of his accomplishments required a lot of recognition. He just believed in doing the right thing, even if he wasn't going to be given any credit or recognition for it. So he always just viewed himself as a farmer at heart. He was a resident of Virginia. Some of the jobs that he had was, one of them was a surveyor. Remember when we talk about the land ordinance, they would go out and divide up the land into the townships and the squares that could be purchased. Somebody had to go out and kind of map that out, and a surveyor would do that job, and that's something that George Washington did early on. He also became that planter, that farmer, especially after he married his wife Martha. We'll talk about that much later on. They ended up with a nice piece of property, especially through her family, and they were able to farm a lot on that land. You remember from us talking about the French and Indian War that he was a soldier in the French and Indian War, a very successful soldier who rose up in the ranks and became a leader in the military at that time. That's where he also learned the guerrilla warfare tactics that would serve him well during the American Revolution. He was a delegate to the First and Second Continental Congresses, those gatherings during the build-up to the Revolutionary War where they were discussing how to communicate with the king and writing the Olive Branch Petition and writing the Declaration of Independence. He was one of the representatives for Virginia at those meetings. We know also that during the American Revolution, he was serving as the commander-in-chief of the Continental Army. So this was one of the things that was going to kind of put him at the top of the list for who could become the first president, because remember, commander-in-chief is part of the job of the president, and George Washington really was the only one there who already had that experience. He also served as the chairman of the Constitutional Convention in 1787, so he kind of almost served in a presidential format when we were writing our Constitution as well. So all of these various accomplishments and achievements and roles that he had already played prior to the time for our voting of the first president really kind of put him up at the top of the list for a lot of people. I mean, plus the fact that he had done a really good job at all of those things. Obviously, if he hadn't done a good job, none of those would have mattered, but he was very good in those roles. So because of all of that, and because he's the first president of the United States, he is typically known as the father of our country, just as James Madison is the father of the Constitution. Jefferson is the father of the Declaration of Independence. George Washington is often referred to as the father of our country, the father of America, because of all of the crucial roles that he played, not only in actually fighting for the United States in the multiple wars, but helping to not create the country and breaking from England. And then not only that, but the creation of the new structure of the government. But then, of course, even leading the U.S. in those earliest days. All of those things together kind of led him to being given that title of the father of the country. And without his leadership, his calm demeanor, his positive attitude, his belief in the citizens, and his belief in the new structure of the government, without his character being of a humble person who just wanted to serve the country, he wasn't looking for his own personal gain from this. And because of all of those things, he really brought strong leadership to the brand new country. And truly, without that strong leadership, it's very possible that even though the Constitution was a real solid structure of government, the country still might not have developed and survived at such a young age, because it's going to go through still some growing pains and some events and circumstances where if we hadn't had that strong leadership, we still might not have survived as the United States of America. So he had that strong character that I was just mentioning, and he kind of developed a celebrity status, believe it or not. He was kind of one of the first big American celebrities because of all of the different roles he played, because of his character, because of his heroic military accomplishments, and all of those things ensured his recognition. And he not only ends up being easily nominated to become the president, but he actually is unanimously supported in the Electoral College for president in 1789. So when they finally have the actual election, he gets 100% of the vote. 100% of the Electoral College votes go to him. He would become the only United States president in our entire country's history to be unanimously elected. So you can tell, obviously, people thought very highly of him and just thought that he could do a really great job as president. And he would need that strong leadership because they would have some serious problems right away that they would have to face. During his 2 terms, which he would only serve 2, he kind of will set that precedent himself, because remember, at the time, the amendment limiting the presidential terms had not been ratified or even proposed. So he could have served out however many terms he wanted to. But he truly had the country's best interests at heart. He did not want any one man to sit in that leadership position too long. He felt like that person would end up becoming too king-like. And of course, they were still very fresh out of being under the thumb of King George in England. So he wanted to make sure that didn't really happen again, or it didn't even feel like it was happening again. He would start some activities and some habits under his presidency that many other presidents not only would take on and continue, but that still continue to this very day. He started regular meetings of his cabinet. Remember, that's a trusted group of advisors that we've talked about a couple different times. And some of the biggest problems that he would need to face, he would lean on his young friend Alexander Hamilton, who worked with him during the Revolutionary War, especially at the Battle of Trenton, the crossing of the Delaware. Hamilton would come up with a variety of plans and some ideas for how the United States could deal with their war debts. We were very much in debt as a country right out of the gate because of all of the debt that we had incurred because of the Revolutionary War. We knew that we needed to try to get out of debt right away. Hamilton would have some plans for that. Hamilton would also create a currency system for the new nation. Remember that under the Articles of Confederation, each state had their own currency. And part of the new structural setup was that the federal government would issue currency and would set that monetary system for the country. And Hamilton is going to be the person who comes up with that system for the new nation. So a lot of what Washington is renowned for is the model that he set for all presidents that would follow him. He set multiple precedents. Remember, that's a vocabulary word in your unit pages that others would carry on long after he was gone. The first one being the title of Mr. President, this title of respect that people needed to use to address you once you were elected and sworn in. And then, of course, we also still use that term for presidents who either aren't reelected or who serve out their terms and move on. They are still always referred to as, president, whether it's, President Clinton or President Bush. They are still continually referred to as president even after their terms have ended. That precedent of serving 2 terms only. He actually was asked to serve a 3rd term and to continue serving in the leadership role because he was doing such a good job. And again, he refused. He did not believe in someone serving for that long. Again, just kind of amassing too much power and really making it seem like they were king-like, which again, we wanted to avoid. And then, of course, that 3rd precedent of regular meetings with that cabinet, that trusted group of advisors to get advice from them. He understood that he needed to listen to people who had some experience and some knowledge in other areas. And he was really good at listening to others and getting their input and their opinions on things. So we talked about at the very beginning of your notes when it asked for the political party, and I said none, because George Washington is going to be the only president of the United States that would be elected without being part of a political party. Parties had not formed by the end of the Constitutional Convention and the time when he was elected. And so he becomes the only one who was just outright elected just solely based on who he was, what he believed. He wasn't affiliated necessarily with a specific group of beliefs. He did believe in a strong central government. Remember, he was part of that Federalist group in that ratification process of the Constitution. And so he did believe in having a strong central government. He believed in the responsibility of the wealthy to help ensure the well-being of all. He truly believed that to whom much was given, much was expected. So basically, if you have a lot, his concept was you should, be able to have a generous heart and help others. Not mandated by law, but solely through the goodness of your heart to help others. He remained open to the opinions of others, like I just talked about. He was very humble in knowing that he didn't necessarily know everything about every topic, and that there were others who he could trust, who had great knowledge about all sorts of various topics, who he could really rely upon and listen to their opinions. He especially trusted another fellow Virginian and a good buddy of his, Thomas Jefferson. And they would consistently bat ideas back and forth and debate issues. And he was a member of George Washington's cabinet and a very trusted friend, really for the rest of his life. So really good relationship with him. Okay, so that should finish up that first page of notes. So I'm going to go ahead and end this recording, and I will make another recording for the second page. Please remember to fold this page in half, glue it in. I believe it's on page 111 in your ISN. Make sure that you show this completed first page of notes to your sub, and then you will be given the second page of notes to get started on. Keep up a good pace. Make sure you're staying focused and getting your work done. and check off the next thing on your list.